am I? I'm a novice coach. And novice coaches, I think, they're just reading the questions. They ask the questions. So my obstacle, the curse of knowledge. I knew a lot about the tools, and I could ask these awesome questions. So I understood the questions. I understood their purpose. I knew how to answer the 5 questions. I didn't know how to teach the learner to answer the 5 questions. So now my current condition is I have come, and through learning and practice, I have come to understand really well how all of the pieces of the kata storyboard fit together. And so I can say, okay, does the challenge and the focus process, is there a good match there? Does the target actually get me or get the learner a step toward the challenge? Is there an apples and apples comparison between the challenge and the current condition? Can I see the gap? Does the learner see the gap? Does what was learned in the last step actually follow what was done in the last step? Is the obstacle being addressed have something to do with the target? Does the next step have something to do with the obstacle? These are the things that I'm checking for when I'm listening to a learner. And I learned how to ask follow-on questions that drew out those connections. And honestly, my approach was, if I understand, I would say, I'm not following you yet. And I would bore in and ask some follow-on questions to try to get that clarity. And my obstacle here is part 2, I know more. So at this point, I had a lot of success. The vast majority of the time this worked because the learners picked it up pretty quickly. So I'm flying along pretty well at this point. And I'm feeling pretty confident. I'm feeling really confident. So this works a lot of times. It especially works when the learner does his part and the learner is boring in on 1 or 2 of these points at a time. The failure mode here is in cases where, for whatever their reason, and often it's organizational, the learner feels a lot of pressure and has moved and tried to fill in everything all at once. And the logic doesn't hang, and it doesn't hang across the board. So I'm a coach. I run into that situation. I try to fix it all. I try to go through this entire set of linkage step by step by step. And I'm trying to do it in a short period of time because I got to move on to the next round. So what does a learner experience at this point is they see this. This is what the learner is experiencing if I am just blasting away. Is, that's not exactly a learning experience for the learner. And what am I doing? I'm introducing fear here. My obstacles, again, curse of knowledge, more knowledge, but I'm still focused on the process. I'm not focused on the learner. Now, the next level, what I call my own learning, which is building flexibility. So the key question, how quickly can we go and see what we have learned? Because the coach doesn't know either. I love those words. Okay, so what am I doing? Follow the structure, but let go of the dogma. The coach's job is to grasp that threshold of knowledge and pull the learner back from that edge. So it's not like this. Don't let them go over the cliff. Grab on, pull them back. Okay, let's figure out where to go from here. So based on common mistakes, I actually, on the back of my coaching card, right? Be predictable. Don't do drive-by coaching. Don't blindside your learner. Check your intentions as a coach. This is critical. It took me a long time to take my own advice on this one. What is your target condition for the learner's development? If you don't have one, step back. Don't just wing it. I don't want them to wing it, so why should I? And then finally, is the learner ready? And if they're not ready for the whole thing, then figure out what they are ready for and work on that with them, because I'm at that threshold of knowledge. This is whether they're at their threshold of knowledge about the process they're working on or about the improvement kata. So what am I working on? Well, some of my personal obstacles is I know I talk a lot and I get an edge on my voice. So I'm working on what Chris Voss, the author of Never Split the Difference, calls that late night FM DJ voice. Trying to be calm and reassuring, especially if I'm feeling a lot of stress. I'm working to be slower to respond, slower to ask, slower to interrupt unless they're going over that cliff, because it's about their train of thought, not about mine. I'm listening for the threshold of knowledge rather than listening for them doing it right. I'm focusing on correcting one thing and making sure that there's positive acknowledgement of a good try. And finally, if the learner is struggling with the structure, and I've run into a few that do, they simply will not organize their thoughts in the sequence of the 5 questions. Okay, well, the answers are more important. So just get them talking, and I fill out a mental checklist. And if they're answering the 5 questions, I'm good with that. My follow-ons are to fill in the gaps.